All right, let's step into a world that's completely sealed off from our own, a place with its own bizarre laws, its own customs, and people unlike anyone else on Earth. We're going deep into Fyodor Dostoevsky's absolutely harrowing account of his time in a Siberian prison camp, the House of the Dead. And right away, Dostoevsky just sets the tone with those chilling words. See, this isn't just a prison he's describing. It's a whole separate universe, a society of the damned. And through his eyes, we're about to walk right through its gates. So how does this whole story even begin? Well, it's not in the prison itself, but with a really strange discovery. The narrator of the book finds himself in this tiny, remote Siberian town where he comes across this deeply mysterious man. And this is our guy, Alexandr Goryanchikov. Now, he's a former nobleman who did a decade of hard labor for, of all things, murdering his wife. He's living in almost total isolation. I mean, this man is so withdrawn, so haunted by something, that a simple, friendly invitation for a cigarette sends him running away in what looks like pure terror. Well, Goryanchikov dies just as he lived, completely alone. But our narrator is still intrigued. So he gets a hold of the man's belongings. He's sifting through this basket of basically junk, scraps of paper, kids' writing exercises, and then he finds it. One single substantial notebook. And this is our key. This notebook isn't just some random diary. It's a detailed, absolutely haunting memoir of his 10 years as a convict. So right now, we're opening this manuscript and we're stepping into the world that Goryanchikov somehow managed to survive. So, what did this place actually feel like? Dostoevsky, speaking through Goryanchikov, he paints this picture of absolute, total confinement, a place literally designed to crush the human spirit, piece by painful piece. The very first thing you'd see is the fence. And we're not talking about a simple wall here. This is a palisade, a wall of tall, sharp stakes driven deep into the ground. It's more than just a barrier. It's a statement, an aggressive declaration that you are cut off from everything you've ever known. And then you look up. Above that fence, on these ramparts, there are guards, and they are always there, pacing back and forth day and night. There is literally never a moment when you're not being watched, never a second you can forget where you are. But you know, this might be the cruelest detail of all, because it's purely psychological. The prisoners, they can peek through the gaps in that fence, but what do they see? Not the whole sky, just a tiny little sliver of the free sky, a constant torturous reminder of the entire world they've lost. Dostoevsky really drives this home. This isn't just a physical cage. It's a self-contained society with its own alien culture. And if we really want to understand this world, we have to understand the people who are trapped inside it. Okay, so who are these people? Well, the prison held convicts from every single corner of the vast Russian Empire. It was this forced melting pot of Russia's most condemned men, and every single one of them had their own story, their own darkness. And even in this House of the Damned, all men were not created equal, not even close. There was a super strict hierarchy. You had your civil convicts, at the very bottom, branded on their faces, stripped of all rights, exiled forever. Military convicts got off a little easier with shorter terms. And then you had the special section. This was home to Russia's most dangerous criminals, men who were pretty sure they were never, ever getting out. And just to give you a feel for this strange family, you had your bandits and thieves, sure, but then you had guys like the former nobleman who committed patricide. He murdered his own 60-year-old father just to get his hands on the inheritance. I mean, a crime that cold and calculated is just hard to wrap your head around. And this is where the prison's moral code gets truly warped. You see? The other convicts, they didn't care one bit that he'd killed his own father. Nobody even talked about it. What they couldn't stand was his foolishness, his lack of social grace. In the House of the Dead, how you carried yourself was way more important than the sin that got you there in the first place. So, with this incredibly oppressive official world trying to crush them, how on earth did anyone survive? Well, the answer is they built a secret world of their own. One with its own economy, its own rules, and its own defiant sense of purpose. I mean, just look at the massive gap between the official rules and the reality on the ground. Officially, work is supposed to be for redemption. In reality, everyone hated it because it was forced and pointless. Money was strictly forbidden, but to the convicts, it was coined liberty, more valuable than anything. Alcohol was illegal, which of course just made smuggling it this passionate, thrilling act of rebellion. So in the shadows, they built this entire underground economy. At night, the barracks would secretly turn into workshops. Men were learning trades, becoming shoemakers and tailors. They were lending money, at crazy interest rates, of course. They were smuggling, and they depended on these small acts of charity from the outside. It was this desperate but thriving ecosystem born completely out of necessity. But you have to understand, this secret life wasn't just about survival. It was about sanity. Dostoevsky realizes that without the ability to work for yourself and own something, no matter how small, a man can't live. He says the prisoners would have just psychologically devoured one another, like spiders trapped in a jar. Okay, so we've seen the world, we've seen the people. But this book goes so much deeper than just describing daily life. It's a profound look into the criminal mind and the whole purpose of punishment itself. Dostoevsky starts asking questions that, honestly, we are still wrestling with today. And this is the absolute heart of it. After seeing all this, after living among these men for years, he's forced to ask, does any of this actually work? Does forcing a man to suffer actually make him a better person? And his conclusions are just bleak. He saw almost no remorse, no repentance at all. In fact, most convicts felt they were totally justified in what they'd done. He came to believe that punishment doesn't reform people. It just breeds hatred. And that forced, meaningless work, it isn't just labor. It is a carefully designed form of psychological torture. It's a pretty radical idea for his time. He's suggesting that society's simple little boxes, good versus evil, right versus wrong, they completely fall apart inside those prison walls. He realized that the nature of crime is way, way more complicated than any legal system could ever truly understand. And this leaves us with what is maybe the most famous line from the entire book. It's a statement that is at once full of despair, but also a strange kind of resilience. It suggests that our ability to adapt to absolutely anything is both our greatest strength and maybe our most terrifying quality. And it's a thought that really sticks with you long after you've closed the book on the House of the Dead.